Should I wait a second for Connor? Or
Yeah, let's just wait until he starts streaming.
I just want to make sure.
We're good? Okay, we are streaming.
Okay, thank you very much. I would now like to call to order our special board meeting for the reopening of the Pajaro Valley Unified School District Contingency Plan, Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. Agenda item 1.2, the Pledge of Allegiance. If Trustee Osmondson is there, if she could lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
She is not present today.
Okay, is Trustee Holm present?
I'm here, but I'm not in the office.
Okay. Trustee Orozco, are you at the headquarters?
Yes, I am. Heading over.
All right, thank you very much.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
Flag
United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America,
America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation,
Under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
and justice for
all.
Okay. I'll let Trustee Orozco get back to her seat so she could join us. Okay. Thank you very much, Trustee Orozco, for leading the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Next up, agenda item 1.3. Welcome to the Pajaro Valley Unified School District Special Board meeting. We are holding this meeting virtually. Next up, each public comment will be read by Vice President Trustee Holm and will be limited to no more than 2 minutes. Any presentations or videos submitted as a form of public comment in the Google form will be shared up to the 2-minute time limit. A phone line was also provided for those who wish to leave a voicemail comment. Comments made during the allotted time will also be shared by Vice President Trustee Holm. Next up, agenda item 1.4, the governing board comments. This is an opportunity for each board member to make a few comments. And with that being said, I would like to start off with Trustee Shocker if she's there.
Hi, I apologize that my camera is not working. Technical difficulties, but they're working on it. I'd like to thank everybody for their emails with questions and concerns that they have about distance learning and starting school. Our number one priority is definitely keeping everyone safe. That includes our teachers, our CSEA employees, as well as students and parents. So hopefully tonight's contingency plan will help alleviate some fears that people have and let us move forward in planning the best school year that we can with distance learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Orozco, are you there?
I am. I just want to welcome everyone, and I share the same sentiment as Trustee Shocker. So just welcome and thank you for all those emails and comments and messages. It's really helpful when we're taking action on something this big. So thank you so much for your input.
Thank you very much. Trustee Holm?
Hi, everyone. I also appreciate the feedback that we've received from the public. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge everybody who has been working tirelessly during negotiations to work out this plan. This was a massive effort by a lot of people, and I know from talking to many of you that it was a lot of hard work. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you very much. Trustee DeSerpa, are you here?
Hi, thank you. Just echoing what my colleagues have said. It is a Herculean effort to get ready for the next school year. I also wanted to just provide my understanding and support to our teachers who are preparing their distance learning plans. I know that alone is not easy, and we're all very grateful for the work that's going into planning a successful fall semester. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Trustee Osmondson here today, or is she not here today?
She is not at this time.
Okay, thank you. See, Trustee Acosta, are you there?
Hello, President Trustee Dodge Jr. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just real brief. And I know I've said this in the past, and I want to echo what's been said. I just want to really thank and commend all of our faculty, our teachers, and all of our classified employees, our workers, our staff, who have been a part of the conversation and the contingency team meetings, and being a part of that conversation and moving that forward in the best interest for our district as a whole, our employees, our students, everyone, and for sacrificing their time. This is for many of them, this is their vacation, this is their time off. And I can also speak firsthand as an educator now myself. The summer is really lacking time off and preparing for distance learning in the fall of 2020. So I really want to just thank all of them and commend them for their work and their sacrifice of their own personal time to be a part of this conversation and help us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, just me finishing up, I would just also like to say thank you to the teachers who are putting everything together, to the teachers that are emailing us, who are trying to give us as much information as we can to help make sure that our students learn properly. I know this isn't the ideal way that we wanted to start the school year, but with things getting worse with COVID-19, especially here in Watsonville, it's important that we take this step. And also just to say thank you to the classified workers who have been out working, passing out food, maintaining our schools. I know they're concerned with some issues and going back to school, so hopefully we can address some of those comments, questions, and concerns. So with that being said, agenda item 2.1, the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve this agenda?
I'll
Move
make a motion
approval.
to move to approval.
Okay, I have a first and a second. We'll now call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next up, agenda item 3.1, public comment on agenda 4.1 only. Do we have any public comments, Trustee Holm?
Yes, we have 27 comments, and I would like to urge anyone, these comments are only to be for the contingency plan. If you submitted a comment that was not about the contingency plan, I urge you to resubmit it at our next regularly scheduled board meeting on August 12th. The first comment is from a teacher, and it is, why is there such a big difference in class sizes between the virtual academy and regular school sites? At the lower elementary level, classes are capped at 24 and then go up to 34 in the upper grades. Dr. Rodriguez stated on Monday that the virtual academy would have only 20 students per class. That seems like a big discrepancy since classroom teachers are being asked to create their own digital curriculum based off of our adopted curriculum, introduce and assess grade level standards, as well as differentiate instruction based on individual learning needs. As I understand, teachers for the virtual academy would not have to do that since they are being given a digital curriculum. Classroom teachers are also being asked to provide live instruction and meet with small groups daily, which is much harder to do with a class of 34. What is the justification of keeping the virtual academy class size at 20 when classroom teachers are being asked to plan, instruct, and differentiate for up to 34 students? And from Sean Murray, the district sent teacher a staff childcare survey on June 26th. What kind of childcare will be offered to teachers with children of their own during distance learning? I am a teacher with children of my own. I can teach through distance learning well, or I can run a homeschool well. I cannot do both well at the same time. And also he says, the high-risk pathway of the contingency plan allows for focused in-person learning for small groups, either by age or identified need. Students receive in-person learning with appropriate modifications. Will SDC be able to meet in person? From Antonio Fernandez Arias, we cannot predict how the future will look like, and with the statistics only increasing, fear of opening up schools is shared and justified. To make virtual learning a privilege and not a right of every student, teacher, and parent is unacceptable. I understand that there are funding implications involved with the form of instruction PVUSD decides to choose, but in a moment where money is held over our community's well-being, we expect you to fight for us and ensure that students and teachers are still able to produce work while staying safe. This issue is very different because it is the first time many of us have had to deal with a pandemic, and understand that a lot of our questions do not have answers yet. But that is not an excuse for those who represent our district to follow in line and not fight the budget. Until we start prioritizing health over profit in all industries and address the cycle of opening up non-essential high-risk businesses when cases are low, our hopes for everything to go back to normal are only delayed. Do not add more fire to the flame and recognize that a vote to open up in-person instruction at any point in this time of the school year, along with the grim statistics, is a vote that will harm the community. Online Academy is a band-aid put on a bigger issue because frankly, a lottery is not acceptable. Our out health is not our game of chance, and to treat it as such is immoral. From Allegra Diaz, we are looking at the Florida Virtual Schools website and do not see an ELL or bilingual track. What is being offered to elementary students interested in this virtual academy coming from bilingual biliteracy programs? How does the proposed virtual academy address the continued needs and equal access to our English language learners, the MSC bilingual staff? From Rosa, dear Board of Trustees, I am writing to urge you all to not reopen our schools for the 2021 academic year. Please take into consideration the fact that the number of COVID cases are rapidly increasing and that they are disproportionately affecting our Latinx population. The fact that during the July 8th board meeting, Dr. Rodriguez was willing to compromise the health of our community and children in order to make sure that we don't lose federal funding is disgusting. Michelle Rodriguez, who do you work for? Why in the world were you so willing to compromise the health of our students? Read the room, Michelle. We are currently in the middle of a global pandemic and you want our children to return to school? For the rest of the board, I ask you to consider the following questions. Would you be okay with having your children return to school? If you were a teacher and your school district didn't even provide you with a livable wage, would you risk your life and that of your loved ones? Make the right decision and instead focus your energy on talking about the ways in which you all plan to make online instruction easier for our kids, particularly those who are first generation, low income, and English learners. From Rachel Hitchcock. Hello, Dr. Rodriguez and board members. I wanted to thank you all for your efforts and dedication over the summer to ensure safe quality instruction for our students and families and safe working environments for the staff members. I am so thankful I have a superintendent and board of trustees that I feel have staff, student, and family best interests in mind at all times. I am looking forward to getting even better at distance teaching this fall, and I am hoping that as teachers, we will, 1, have the flexibility to work from home in our classrooms as needed, 2, have very clear guidelines while still being flexible for families, cannot help their children until the evening, etc. For example, specific platforms could be used for certain grade levels like Seesaw for K3 and Flipgrid for 4 through 5. Have consistency regarding the role and value of science and VAPA teachers. As a science teacher, some classroom teachers I worked with wanted me on their Google Classroom page and we collaborated very successfully. Some classroom teachers not only wanted me on separate classroom and would not work with me in any way, but they actively discouraged their students' participation in science, so there was enough time for their classes. This happened to other science and VAPA teachers as well. For me personally, I saw much more participation from my 4th and 5th students who only had to navigate one Google Classroom. 3, have all principals on their teachers' Google Classrooms so they can offer support and feedback. Thank you again for the work you do. I love my job and feel so grateful to work in this district. From Jason, will schedules be standardized or will each class be different? Will all work be online or will there be packages? From Kirsten Cummings, I'd like you to speak to how the needs of students with 504 plans and IEPs will be addressed during the distance learning. Specifically, what types of modifications can we expect? Then I have a couple of voicemails. I will share my screen. All right. Give me just a moment. while I'm waiting for the other app to open up. I will read one other comment from Anonymous. I have a child who attends Mar Vista and has an IEP for speech therapy. Throughout the distance learning program last year, my child regressed with the progress she was making when attending once a week speech therapy sessions. Making simple recordings on video that was required by home learning site Seesaw was exceptionally challenging. There were several daily assignments that wanted voice recordings or videos. This made distance learning more difficult, intimidating, and frustrating for my child. The speech therapist sent out weekly emails that were addressed to parents of speech and language students, accompanied by an attachment with a scavenger hunt worksheet. Though there are several speech impairment types and treatments, a generic email and worksheet does not meet the requirements necessary for progress or success. I did not feel like my child was treated like an individual or his speech needs were being met by any means. My request to have once a week live Zoom or Google Meet for children that need my request is to have once a week live Zoom or Google Meet for children that need speech therapy, and to resume in-person speech therapy sessions when permitted. Please consider this proposal. I'm going to try and open those files in a different app. Try that again.
Just a question regarding starting school with distance learning. So teachers will teach from home, and I am to understand that other workers will report to either their school sites or district offices. I'm wondering if workers like classified workers in school sites would be able to stagger their work schedule rather than being there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, in a situation where the virus is upticking in Santa Cruz County, thereby making it safer to do almost a hybrid for employees, partial work from home, partial work at school. Just wondering if that might be something that is feasible, if that might be available for classified employees. Thank you.
Other comment? All right.
Hi, this is regarding public comment on agenda item 4.1. I'm a parent of 2 boys who attend Rio Del Mar Elementary. I want to start by expressing my sincerest appreciation and gratitude to the school board, district administrators, school administrators, and faculty for their leadership, hard work, and inspiring dedication during these truly unprecedented times. I would like to share just a few questions and concerns regarding the district's fall plan. My first concern is how fall will compare with distance learning from the spring. I recognize the Herculean task that was placed on our teachers when the schools shut down. Teachers were essentially asked to build a plane while it was already in the air. However, my sincere hope is that there will be more live virtual teacher instruction at regularly scheduled times throughout the day, especially if students will be assessed on their ability to demonstrate mastery of standards and not solely on their effort. As a high school teacher of 20 years, I'm experiencing firsthand the time, effort, and coordination it takes to develop such a program. My questions are, what resources, support, compensation, and time is our district providing our teachers to enable them to create a comprehensive distance learning program that provides quality virtual live instruction? Is it possible to provide more professional development days at the beginning of the school year to help teachers prepare? My second issue is regarding the district declaring in July that the plan is to stay in full distance learning mode for the entire first semester. Even though that may very well be the case, I know many districts like Palo Alto Unified and Mountain View Los Altos Union, where I teach, are reassessing every 4 to 6 weeks based on the feedback from our state and county health departments. My questions are, would it be possible for the board to designate certain checkpoints throughout the semester to reassess the current learning plan based on county and state safety guidelines? Also, based on the letter that went out yesterday, is it the district's intention to apply for a waiver to allow elementary schools to offer modified in-person instruction when our county meets the necessary requirements? I sincerely thank you for your time, consideration, compassion, and leadership. Thank you.
From Cynthia Fernandez, we have Dear Board of Trustees and Dr. Rodriguez, I just purchased a MacBook Pro out of pocket that cost $1,200 because the Chromebook provided made distance learning very challenging. I had to provide packets for my grade level with a combination of some online activities, and the Chromebook doesn't work well to convert files without additional apps and hours of learning how to actually use it. To make matters worse, where I live, our Wi-Fi is bad, so making meetings and student lessons nearly impossible. So I ask what technology will be offered to us who are not interested in teaching in the virtual academy. From Kathy Butler, good evening. First, I would like to thank you for putting the safety of our community, both students and staff, first in your decision to start the 2021 school year with distance learning. As a resource specialist in our district, I will be the first to admit that distance learning is not the ideal teaching learning environment for most of our staff and students, but it is necessary at this time. I hope that there are clear student and staff expectations put in place to make distance learning more equitable for all across our district. Last year, the student workload varied drastically from teacher to teacher and school to school. I am excited that more lessons will be taught through Google Meets. However, I am concerned about quality internet access and devices for these meetings. The Chromebook provided to me by the district was unable to handle large Google meetings. It is my understanding that teachers in the virtual academy will be provided with more efficient devices. All teachers in our district need updated quality and efficient devices. From Anonymous, I would like to thank the board and Dr. Rodriguez for taking the time to think about what is best for teachers and students at this time and what seems best right now is to begin the year with distance learning. As a teacher, I have spent countless hours worrying about how to start the year like this, doing professional development on my own time and thinking about how I will start the school year. I saw today that teachers in the virtual academy will be receiving a brand new laptop to help them with their teaching. Why is this not being considered for teachers in regular classrooms as well? We were given teacher Chromebooks and some of us are using outdated MacBooks that were barely cutting it for us last year. With distance learning until December, isn't it as important for teachers to get the same accommodations to make sure we can teach virtually to our full potential? Thank you for your time. Also from Anonymous, Trustee Acosta, as a fellow Republican voter, how do you feel about the reopening of our schools? I've seen a lot of Republicans like yourself be very much open about the reopening of our schools despite us being in the middle of a global pandemic. From Abel Fernandez, if as a PVUSD tenured teacher, I apply and get accepted to work in the virtual academy, if the virtual academy does not continue 2021-2022 year, will I be guaranteed a place somewhere in the district? What if there are no openings for math teachers? From Donovan Arteaga, how dare you even consider schools reopening? You are all willing to reopen schools but have no issue working at home as a trustee. Would you send your kids to school if they reopen? Most of you don't even send your kids to PVUSD schools in general. Why should the parents of private school kids, aka Trustee Acosta and Superintendent Rodriguez, have a say in the reopening of schools they wouldn't even dare send their kids to? The disconnection between the board and the community is appalling and frightening. I understand the board has a few Republicans, but please do not bring that Fox News COP agenda into our district. From Anonymous, Daniel Dodge, how do you feel about the reopening of our schools? I know the last time you said it gets a little crazy in Watsonville. I hope that you were talking about the pandemic when you made these comments. From Itzel Godinez, I think it's quite disrespectful of the council to sit and discuss something that they will never be affected by. As someone who has siblings who attend PVUSD schools, I don't want my siblings to be put in a position where they have to compromise their health. Most of the trustees' children don't even attend our schools, so why should their input be taken? taken into consideration. From Rosie, thank you for choosing to start the school year with distance learning. My child is entering first grade, 5 years old, and has health risks that make him, along with other members of our household, more vulnerable to severe health conditions related to COVID-19. Initially, we signed up for the virtual academy as this was the only choice given for online learning, not because that my 5-year-old works better independently. However, like most younger children, our child would benefit from having more structure that includes distance learning with a teacher able to support him with his work and encourage academic achievement through these difficult times. Will distance learning options that include teacher instruction be provided to meet the academic and developmental needs of the student population that make up PVUSD, particularly those in the beginning grades? In an effort to improve communication and promote transparency, I request, along previous requests by others, that live stream public board meetings allow individuals the ability to ask questions during the live stream board meetings. I would like to request those who submit a public comment form be provided with a confirmation receipt. From Angel Garcia Lopez. Dear Board of Trustees, I would like to address the possible notion of the reopening of our schools. We must minimize the amount of physical contact our students must make in order to reduce the numbers of coronavirus cases there are in Watsonville already. The opening of schools will primarily impact low-income Black, Indigenous, people of color families the most, not them white families and PVUSD officials that send their kids to private schools not even in the PVUSD. I don't want my health to be affected simply because some selfish people choose to open schools for their own profit. We ended the 2019-2020 school year with distance learning, and we could do the same this upcoming school year. Yes, it may be difficult and a bit unfortunate, but in the long run, keeping our schools closed is the right choice. Now that you finally started listening to your students, continue the same movement with this decision. Listen to me, one of many students that are telling you to protect our children. Keep schools closed. From Adrian Elizalde. The idea of reopening our schools for the year of 21-22 is absurd at this point in time. COVID-19 is not a political agenda, and listening to science is not becoming a sheep like the Republicans would like you to believe. Acosta, as a registered Republican, I would like to know if you also believe that the science and doctors who have urged the safety needs of our communities are also just a suggestion. To the trustees who do not have the forethought to think that we may not have a readily available vaccine and will undoubtedly continue to spread the death and sickness that is already rampant throughout our community, to the trustees who do not even send their own children to our schools, to the trustees who can see that this virus affects our low-income community more, why would you put our children at risk? I understand that families may not have a place to go or someone to take care of them during the lockdown, but it is better than having respiratory failure due to a preventable pandemic. Be smart. From Anonymous, as someone who lives on the crazy side of Watsonville, as Daniel Dodge once said on July 22nd, I urge you all to vote against the reopening of PVUSD schools. Also from Anonymous, if the board opens schools, blood will be on their hands. From Elizabeth, it is not safe to open schools at any time soon. Just like we were one of the first school districts to close due to safety, we should be one of the last ones to open. We are all collectively feeling this pandemic and its burdens, but it does not compare to the danger of putting our kids at risk. I will not put my child at any risk at any level. Our teachers deserve safety, so do our janitors, nurses, and staff members. Unless you as a board member are willing to take up space and be in a school surrounded by children all day, every day, and feel completely safe doing so, there's no reason to entertain the idea of going back. We all need to accept that due to the community's lack of mask wearing and social distancing, we will be here for a while. It's hard to accept, but the sooner we come to terms with it, the better we will deal with all of this. Parents need to step up and not rely on just the school to educate their kids. That should be common knowledge. This is hard on everyone, but until the community starts taking the precautions necessary to truly be safe and take the time to see the very real life-threatening disease leave our communities, schools must remain completely closed. This week alone, Santa Cruz is closing everything down again because we opened way too soon. This is not a risk we can take with our children. From a member of the crazy side of Watsonville, if they choose to open, I hope the board is ready to be held responsible for the deaths of many community members. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, agenda item 4.1, approve reopening PVUSD Contingency Plan. This report will be by Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, our Superintendent of Schools.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be not only addressing the questions that I know many people want, but addressing the new slides that have been added that really address those questions. So I am, because most people have seen this, I am going to just scan to the new locations so that you know. And for everyone that's watching, hopefully you know that we have decided to do distance learning, or the recommendation is to do distance learning for the whole semester. The reason why we particularly chose not to go 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and do that is what happened to us during the spring, where we had, are we going to be closed 4 weeks? Are we going to be closed another? And in this time of instability, and also foreseeing that there is probably pretty substantial time before we have the things in place that are needed for us to return, we did decide to provide that stability, not only to staff, but also parents and students of knowing where we're moving to. And so I'm going to go to this slide. This slide I know I shared before. This was on here. I do want to show, this slide right here is what would happen once our students come back. And so there is a lot of questions of what would those procedures be. So I encourage people to continue to look at this. So there would be 3 different times or ways when a student might be screened, whether it's entering the school bus, screening at school, or if they develop symptoms at school. And then there is a process to that. The same with staff members who will be doing what's called passive screening, meaning that they screen for themselves. And we added these slides you have seen. It's just we have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to be going over professional development in a minute, but we do have a presentation that deals with all the health and safety that is going to be geared towards students, parents, and staff. Of course, with us going to distance learning the first half, it is not as significant, but we still are doing it because we still will have people on campus and moving about. I wanted to show this right here. This is something that we just added. So we have a lot of questions about how are we preparing our facility. Santa Cruz County Office of Education and all the school districts within Santa Cruz County have engaged together for an interagency site visit. And so it includes an entire team. It's a trained volunteer that's normally a retired school administrator, a COE representative, 1 site representative, and then a representative from our maintenance and operations department. I want to give Richard Reed, our new director of M&O, a lot of support for the work that he did. He was instrumental not only on developing and supporting the development of this tool, so you can see what it looks like in the different areas that they fill in. But he also has been at every one of the site visits, really checking to make sure through our collaboration with both of our unions, we did also have a way for staff to provide feedback on potential areas of concern. So of course, staff is there, they know, versus this group, although there is a site representative there, but they know what are possible concern areas. And so they had the ability to go in. It was just for staff, but for staff to go in and provide us feedback on things to look for when we did that. Do want to note that I am proud of the team, because as you can see, here is the listing of the sites. And so you can see the many sites that the review has already been done. That allows us to already be able to take those work orders, take those, what we're measuring air quality, we're looking at the ventilation systems, we're doing, it's a multi-page document. This is just one page of that. But we are going through, and then from that we have a report, which we are then going to be able to check off and make sure that before students come back and staff comes back, that we have it completely done. You can see that we have very few that are still pending. And we do have some that will be happening next week, but the grand majority of the sites have already been complete. So this just kind of continues with the information. This was all in the last document. And so I'm going to continue to move forward to the new location. So as we have been discussing, we're doing distance learning for all TK, and this actually can be pre-K 5, 6. We have what we have done, and it has been through really good collaboration with all of our, with both of our unions, is really looking at schedules and how we can support, because we do know, we did receive a lot of accolades for the work that we did in the spring, but we also recognize that we need to continue to improve and do better. I wanted to note this is, there is now information in terms of both groupings and instructional, common instructional practices for each one of our early childhood education programs. Again, all of this that is here has been co-created with the different teams. And so I know for some, it's been some frustration of why didn't we have all the information, but that is because daily, including today, we have been negotiating items all in an effort to make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to supporting our students later on. So I'm going to kind of go show you some sample schedules, and I won't go over each one, but I want to show them to you. So what you will notice in every single grade level, whether it is your youngest of children to your oldest at 12th grade and adult ed, that there is both a synchronous instruction component to a day, and there is individualized learning for the early childhood. For early childhood education, you can see that it specifically is talking about individualized learning with parent support. They have been doing this. They actually continue to do this work during the summertime. And so I do appreciate that. They have been doing weekly home learning packets for their students, even during the summer. And you'll see that there are small variations to that when it comes to migrant seasonal Head Start, but you'll also see that there's some consistency, right? So there is group activity, which is the synchronous instruction. A lot of the times the synchronous instruction, especially in the lower grades, is focusing on language and literacy development. And then you will see that there's continued individualized learning with support. You'll see the same for Duncan Holbert, where there is, in this case, they determined, because it is does support primarily special education students, you'll see it's a little bit different, but it addresses the questions that were brought up of when will these services be provided. So again, you see in this case, they determined that they would do synchronous whole class. SEL, again, stands for social emotional learning. So they're doing synchronous whole class in the morning. The important thing that we heard from parents was that students need to have a better schedule than they had the previous year. So you will see that students are very much now have times I realize, and we'll address it in a little bit with the older students, that there are some students that are not going to be able to do that. But what we found, actually, it's much fewer than we think. So we have much fewer students who are currently working or who are currently not able to do it. So we're really going to encourage parents, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the parents, but we're going to really encourage parents to help their students, regardless of the age, to continue with the schedule. That will help us when we wind up coming back. Something important for Duncan Holbert is you'll see the DSI services will occur during this point. This is important because we don't want to take students out of the instructional time. So this is the time in which the students will receive their services according to their needs. And another thing that you'll see, and you'll see it in the upcoming as well, is now, and this was another request of our parents, and our teachers and staff are coming through on it, and I'm appreciative of their support of it, of having daily office hours for parents, students to be able to check in and have additional calls. I know this is a little bit smaller, sorry about that, but what you will see is this. I wanted to point out, this is the first week of school. So what we want to do is we want to have the first week of school be very similar to what we would do in a regular school setting, which is based on a lot on routines and expectations. So what you'll see is the first week of school looks very different. I'm going to show you what the teachers are going to be doing during this time. But what you'll see is teachers will be doing synchronous whole class with their students during this first week. And then there will be asynchronous instruction. So there was conversations and questions around, so how will parents, how will students know how to log on to Google Classroom? How will they know what to do on Seesaw? So what you'll see here is they'll be watching videos on Common Sense Media that is on digital citizenship. So they're going to be learning about that. They're going to be learning how to access Google Classroom, especially for our littlest. You'll see it changes over time with the grades. And then they're going to be beginning to interact with the curriculum and our digital tools. So for the littlest ones, it's how do you log on to Lexia? We're going to be giving them their passcodes with videos that they can watch off, videos that all they have to do is put their a camera of a phone, and it will open it up and really explain in English and Spanish and Mixteco what is occurring. You'll see TK, K, and first through third are very similar in nature. Fourth and fifth grade, it's a little bit different down below because there's an expectation that they already have some of that. So they're going to be working on, setting up their Google Classroom, understanding their norms and expectations and routines. And then you can see for high school, we are recruiting all of our students and all of our staff, and we're doing a school kickoff assembly. That's really possible, especially at the middle and high school level, due to the amount of staff that we have there. So they have multiple assistant principals, and then they also have counselors and other staff that can help ASB. And so you'll see that we're doing a school kickoff. We're really trying to ensure that we bring the joy of the first day of school, right? So we want, we know that it's different, but we also know that as educators, we always tease that we have two new years, right? We have the educational new year, and we have the calendar new year. So we want to bring that to the students. And so you'll see what the students are doing. And again, they too will be watching videos, working on accessing their Google Classroom. interacting with the curriculum and becoming familiar with all of our new tools, because we do have significant new tools. So that's the first week. And then after the first week, you'll see then it becomes much more structured in total. And so something that I want to show on this, which again, it builds towards the fact that we know the importance of the work that we have been doing. And so here you'll see that they, again, are working on synchronous whole class, SEL. So you'll see district-wide, we're setting the tone each morning with working on social emotional learning. We do have a curriculum. So we have Stanford Harmony, which is what we use at the elementary level. We use Newzilla ELA for the secondary level. And so we're really going to be doing that work at synchronously or together. And then we're going to be doing synchronous small group. This is when SIPs will occur. So we want to continue to focus on SIPs. We know that we've had great progress on instruction and literacy instruction, so we don't want to give that up. So you'll see the synchronous small group instruction and then going back to synchronous whole class. So again, appreciative of the teachers, and I think the parents will be very very satisfied with the amount of support that the children are getting. Again, we really encourage parents to not feel like they have to teach the children, but they're almost just guiding the self-directed behavior, right? Helping them to remind to get up, to get on the computer, to do the work. When the teacher is sending them to do asynchronous learning, so by themselves, you have to work for 45 minutes, that the children are doing that. And then you can see, as I mentioned with the other, then there is office hours. So one change that we did make is you will see that we do have a shortened schedule on Mondays. And so that's when our short day used to be on Wednesdays, and now district-wide, we're going to be doing it on Mondays, and you can see it here with the collaboration. This is middle and high. If I often get this question of, I don't understand why you say accept Aptos High, and then down here you have them. That's because Aptos High is our only high school or only school that has 7 periods. And so you'll see that the start time and the end times are identical, but it gets distributed just a little bit differently because of the 7 periods. Something else that is different this year is that it will be on block schedule, but students will actually be going to their periods at their period time. And so that again builds into the routine and the support there. And the teachers do have the office hours as with the other. This is a sample of the key TK-12 life skills rise in SDC students that are not responding. So unfortunately, we were hoping that we would have the executive order by now. We do not. This is, there is currently a disconnect between the fact that we're distance learning, that we're doing that work, and at the same time, we are being held liable not only for the assessments, but also the services of students now. And so those two don't necessarily marry with each other well. And so CDE in the state is aware of that challenge. And so there was going to be sometime this week, although last week, not all of what was supposed to be released was released. So we're hoping soon that we will get some guidance on that, because there are some students, especially, so these are our most disabled students, these right here, sorry. these are most disabled students, that it could be a significant challenge, and that was brought up in some of the comments, a significant challenge for our most disabled students to do all distance learning. And so we would want, one, the numbers are easier because generally this is about 10 students per class. So if, according to what winds up happening, then we would split them in half, and basically you would have a Monday, Tuesday group, and you would have a Thursday, Friday group. But we are still at this point in the middle of determining that. And still ensuring health and safety restrictions at the same time. And so then I'm not going to go over in big detail because you all saw it previously, but I just want everyone to note the medium risk is in here for all the different categories. And so you can see them. This would not occur until second semester at the earliest. But I wanted you to know that they were on here. As we mentioned before, each student will have a weekly planner. So a parent will at a glance be able to see what is being expected of the student. And so then the students will be able to know that. There was a question about so what happens if a student can't be present at the moment? Many teachers are deciding to record their lessons for two things. One, so students can go back and revisit what was said, which is a great support for students. Or they, if they weren't able to make it. However, I do want to note that attendance is taken this year. And this isn't just PVUSD, this is a state. Attendance is taken. So students are expected to attend school. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about the non-participating students, but you actually have to have a process if a student misses 3 consecutive days or 60% of a week. And so just something for parents to know, and we're going to be letting people know. That's why it is important for students to get back into the routine. We are doing something this year. So we talk a lot about educational equity and how do we help support all students. We also recognize that we don't necessarily want them plastered to the screen at all times, and we want to be able to do different things with them. So what we are doing is we are doing some back to school launch kits. So we worked with our teams to identify supply kits, and what we're going to be doing very carefully, but pick up like we did in other days. We're going to be doing distribution of these kits on August 11th to the 14th. And for high school and secondary, it's going to go a little bit longer just because they have more students. So we're going to have to space them out. But you can see we had everywhere from art teachers giving us input. So you'll see things like watercolor set to paper to whiteboards, things that they're going to need in order to be able to do SIPS instruction, or as they're getting older. This is the older, right? As they're getting older, their composition notebook, their graphene notepad, which they're going to need for mathematics. And so we're excited to do this. Expanded cabinet is going to be the stuffers of the launch kits. And so we're going to all be far away from each other, but match and putting things together on the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th in order to be able to get these in the hands of our students. So on the first day of school, which is August 17th, that they're prepared. So there's been significant questions about professional development and what is happening. So I just want to kind of explain simultaneously of what's going to be happening with students, what's going to happen with teachers. We do have voluntary training that is starting as of next week. for our teachers. It is voluntary, but so what we want to do as well, we have what's called Sbc Days, which are full professional development days, and those days are before this first week of school. Those will also be what we call personalized or individualized. So a teacher will know these are the offerings, and they will be able to go according to what their need is. So if I already know Lexia really well, I won't go to Lexia. I might go to Seesaw, right? And so they will have that opportunity. So as you know, they will be doing the synchronous learning with their whole class in the morning. And this is the first week only. And then they will be given time to do basically two major things, right? Collaboration, which includes planning, and also professional development. And so because this is a document for the community, we didn't provide all the detail, but I wanted people to see the process that we're going through. And I also can't ignore the 2,500 online sessions that our coaches did with our teachers last year as well. So, teachers really took it on last year, and I think they learned a lot. So, of course, we're not starting from zero this year, right? We had 3 months where people really dug in and practiced. And so this is the first week for high school. So again, you can see where they're working with students. And then again, they too will have collaboration and professional development time during that first week to really ensure that we are moving it forward. So I had conversations with the superintendent on Monday night. And so most of the FAQs, the frequently asked questions around that, was placed in here. I won't spend too much time. I will just say the website, we do have a website up and running now for Virtual Academy. So it is on here. We are going to be opening registration on Thursday for those who did the intent to enroll. They'll have the first shot at it, and then and then we will open it on Friday, as is stated here, for everyone else. And so you can see we're going to begin formal registration on July 31st and continue it to Monday, August 10th. Again, we are nowhere near the 1,700 students that's necessary, mostly because we're doing distance learning at the simultaneous. But as is required by education code, we can only have up to 10%. So if we were to reach this max, right now we're not even close to this max, we would have to do a lottery. And I know that that frustrates some people, but that is education code. So I will, you have seen this because we did a whole session on it. So I will just, I'll just move past that. You haven't seen this, so I wanted you to kind of see it. So it's a different process, right? So what we're doing, when people say what's the difference between distance and virtual, the key difference is this. For distance learning, we are taking our regular district-wide curriculum and we have digitized it for the time period that we are distance learning, so that when students come back, we can pick up exactly where we left off using our district curriculum. So that curriculum, for the most part, is not geared to be digitized, right? So it has been, some of it is more than others. So Benchmark, which is our brand new, so our newer adoptions definitely are more aligned to it than others. But no matter what, it's not meant to be a pure virtual experience. So there is significant work that we do to support that, versus this, which is Florida Virtual, and this is a second grade science version. This actually was created from the ground up, knowing that it would be a completely digital experience. And so it has many more features, and it actually uses what's called a learning management system. So Google is technically not a learning management system because it doesn't have all the components necessary to be one. It's getting there, but it doesn't have all the components. Versus this, which is why we purchased the laptops for the virtual academy teachers, is that this is much more dependent on a true learning management system. And so you'll see everything from what the students have, where they have glossary and a checklist and a toolbox of things and a bookmark. Students can also press on the My Progress button and know exactly where they are. They'll see everything from videos to simulations that they have to do. Here's a simulation they have to do, to self-check. This, of course, is a younger version. This is a second grade version. This is higher, so this is Algebra 1. So this would be for our 8th grade students, possibly 7th probably at the lowest level, or the student that's the most accelerated, and then our 9th graders as well. So you'll see it has many components like the video. It has checking of understanding. You have simulations that are occurring. In this case, they're having to graph it. They're having to check their answers, has glossaries, and then of course, the short quizzes along the way, which dictate whether or not they're allowed to move on. So it's very similar in some cases to our credit recovery, in that it is really all in one. The students have a lot of the supports. However, they will be able to daily access teachers during their office hours if they need support for that. And so this piece really hasn't changed. I have a whole bit on athletics and childcare, so I'm going to talk about that now. So we frequently are talking about safe spaces. So this is for students who are not participating or cannot access internet. So we do have both in the South and the North Zone, we have locations throughout the district that have no cell service. No cell service means that not even our hotspots. So we have 3,000 additional hotspots, which we will be giving out before school starts to students and families that need them. But in some cases, even those hotspots aren't enough. And so we are looking at, it's very much like the hub or a regional center type, where we are identifying a few locations where we would be able to have stable groupings of students and move this through. We do need to adhere to all of the requirements. And we're also currently waiting still for some executive orders around this. But this would be the thought of doing that. For classified employees, we are looking at providing secured childcare through extended learning for those employees who cannot work remotely. Certificated employees, we are assuming that they will, unless they work for special education and have to come in because of their students. We are assuming that we will not be providing them childcare now because they will be able to be at home and be with their children. We also are looking at community partnerships. So as always, our communities are stepping up. El Sistema, Life Lab, YMCA, the Parks and Rec, and Santa Cruz Parks and Rec have all been working with us to look at childcare opportunities in safe ways in order for both our families and our staff to be able to have support for their small children. I often get questions about athletics. So CIF made the decision about a week ago, I would say now, where they did change the sports calendar. So they did 2 major shifts. One, it's no longer 3 seasons, now it's 2 seasons, and you can see it down here. as well as they shifted the practice start dates. So that's something that is important to note. So if community has questions about, well, when's practice going to start, you can see required by CIF when practices can indeed start. I always mention this just as a mom of a child that is a college athlete. This is something that is pretty great that they did. So a lot of our really high level athletes do both a travel team and a high school team. They specifically usually have them at alternate seasons, so that basically you can continue to train all year round. CIF is now allowing the student to participate in an outside team and the high school team simultaneously. And that's because this got changed. And so normally when they're actually in season, they would be with an outside team. So they now can do both for the upcoming school year. And again, that's CIF driven. So we've seen this. We added some more information about the non-participating teams because we had some questions about, okay, so what's going to happen with students who are not participating? What are we going to do? It goes this direction. So the blue is level 1. So teachers are going to be taking attendance. They are going to be connecting with their students daily. They will be connecting and trying to do updates on progress. If they cannot do that, then what they will do is then they will transfer it to the site wellness team. I have another whole slide on the site wellness team. So there's more information on that in the next slide, but basically then that's the next level of us trying to connect with any students who are non-participators. And then it goes to the district wellness team. And that includes everyone from student services, attendance, counseling, parent outreach. So it is through what we call the interactive dialogue process. And that is when we are really looking at how can we help and support you. So examples of site level supports so this is when you get to level 2, it's having daily or weekly phone check-in, seeing how it's going, increasing those academic supports, having the individual tech liaison provide the support, because the question is, why aren't you participating, right? So it could be a technology issue or not understanding. Some district level supports include all those, including home check-ins, PVPSA support, Encompass Monarch. All of them are willing to do home visits for us as well. And as I mentioned at the last board meeting, we reconfigured our services with PVPSA. So we will have an entire team, which is the Valor team, which will be providing case management and really helping to facilitate that. We are looking at mentoring programs as well as case management for those students. And then on here in expectations and guidelines, I just wanted to mention, because it was something that we added. So before, the question is we don't see information regarding all the early childhood education. So I just wanted to note that up here it kind of speaks to it. And then down here is what each one is doing differently in terms of expectations and guidelines and communications with families. And so then people can see what is the expectation for that. So, and it does vary by the program. So child development, they're doing twice weekly communications with families. They are using what's something called the Learning Genie family app, engagement app, and it's a two-way messaging that allows for that. Duncan Holbert is going to be communicating 4 days a week with families regarding goals, and they're going to be using Google Classroom, but also Classroom Dojo and teletherapy. And then for Migrant Seasonal Head Start, they are going to be doing virtual meetings with their parents as well, and utilizing their website to distribute their materials, as well as they have a team that's called the Family Service Workers that actually provide those resources and supports. So I will bring it up for questions at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Superintendent Dr. Rodriguez. That was a great presentation. Do we have any discussion from the board? Any trustees have a question, comment, or concern?
I have a bunch.
Okay, Trustee Shocker.
Okay, so first, Dr. Rodriguez, I'm just going to ask you a question. So say we reach our 1,700 in enrollment with the virtual academy, and second semester comes and we open at a medium risk rate, and parents do not want to send their kids back. Are we going to be able to have some kind of site option for them if the virtual academy is full?
I'm sure that we will. I would say if we are at the point where we are full at Virtual Academy at 1,700 and we still have excess, then we probably should reevaluate if we're really able to open up.
Okay. Okay. And so that's something I wanted, that's a question that was on my mind. Also, have we applied for the learning loss mitigation funds that were made available through the CDE?
Oh yeah. So we will be talking about that on the 12th. We actually the board approved that application a while back. I don't know which board meeting it was, but it was probably a month or so ago.
Okay. I couldn't remember, so I just wanted that out there. For the question about the class size of the virtual academy, what was our reasoning for doing the 1:20 ratio for virtual academy?
Yeah, so I mean, it possibly could go up. Right now, we believe that it's 330. So I think it's a couple of things. One, the 21 allows us to have some room for growth. So right now, we don't know who exactly is going to come, but it allows us to have enough teachers with enough expertise across the board. So when you think of a K-12 setting, you have to have enough teachers that not only have elementary experience, but middle, and specifically at the high school, you have to make sure that you have your core subjects covered. And so in order to do that, right, so we're estimating that we're only going to have 125 high school students, but you do need to have one core subject teacher for each area, just so that during office hours, you can have content questions addressed. So it is possible that they'll have more than that. But unfortunately, that is one of the costs of a smaller school, which is that because you have to have sufficient staff in order to be able to provide the expertise for your students. It also, I think, although they will not have to be creating material, and they don't, they will be having weekly virtual coaching sessions and developing PLPs, which is personalized learning plans for their students, which is definitely a new way of teaching. It's a personalized way of teaching. And so it's almost similar to, having each student have a IEP. So it is time intensive. So I think a combination between having some cushion. So if we have a first grader that wants to come in and we're not over the 24, right? And at the same time, allowing the teachers to really learn and understand how to do a targeted personalized learning plan for their students.
Okay, that makes sense. So thank you for clarifying that up, because I know there were some questions surrounding that. My next question is going back to the slide where you showed the learning schedules with the synchronized learning.
Huh?
From looking at this, I've got that TK is going to be in continuous synchronized learning from 8:45 in the morning until 1:45 in the afternoon.
I can pull it up for you if you like.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me reshare my screen. Yep, these are the schedules that we did. So it's 30 minutes. So so it is 30 minutes from 8:45 to 9:15. And then they would be doing small group instruction after that. So some students are completing their asynchronous learning task and some are with the teacher. But yes, there is a half hour in the morning when they're doing their daily routines and their SEL work.
Okay, so when I'm looking at the schedule, so I'm asking these questions because I've had a lot of parents ask questions about this. And one of the complaints we had was not enough schedule. And we also had a complaint last year of too much being expected screen time wise. From the schedule you're showing that there's whole class synchronized learning from 8:45 to 9:15. And there's a 15-minute break. And then from 9:30 to 10:30 it's small group. So some children will be learning with a teacher, other children will be either working offline or doing an Alexia type program. Then from 10:45 to 11:45, we've got students doing language arts or math. 11:45 to 12:30 is lunch, and then 12:30 to 1:45 is a continuation of language arts math. To me, this seems like a really long day, not only for students, but for teachers. And that was one of the biggest complaints from parents, was that too much is expected of their children to sit in front of the screen. I know we're moving into a distance learning platform, but what's going to be the flexibility here for parents that are working and trying to help their children to have some flexibility in here? Are they going to be able to log off for a portion? Are they going to be able to make I lost my train of thought. Are they going to be able to work with the teacher and site administration to have an alternate schedule for some of these things? What is our plan?
Yeah, so not much. So I think the goal is for students in general to do this process. I think what we saw in the survey is everyone, both students, teachers, and parents said their number one concern was a lack of routine. And that's why we put the information about the kits in there. We are going to be having them do things paper and pencil as well. But if you look at this, it's pretty close to what we would expect of them in the classroom. I think with the synchronous learning, it's actually much improved, because what a lot of parents said to me was that, and we had a lot of asynchronous learning before. So everybody was just told, we need you to do these things and do it at your will. And so then that required a lot of parent direction, versus in this case, it's really much more with during this time you're doing this, during this you're doing this. So it's really just setting the expectation for the children. For students that are not participating, so that could be one of the students, then we would look for alternatives for them. But the goal is to really encourage them to follow the schedule. You'll see that, they're synchronous. It's kind of like the whole part whole. So it's whole class, then small group, and then whole class again. That's followed by small group, including intervention in there.
Okay, but students are going to have to be logged in from 8:45 in the morning to 1:45 in the afternoon.
Actually, that should say 11:45 a.m. It should not say 1:45 p.m.
Okay, so all across the board, it should be 11:45. There's no
right here. Yeah. This one
Okay.
should be, and that's why I went and switched to the 1 through 3.
Okay, because
Because
that's
yeah, because they go off on lunch at 1:45. So the teachers are not doing anything with the students for TK and K after 11:45 unless the parents want to do an office hour.
okay. So unless the teacher's providing some kind of special instruction, or like you said, doing an office hour, those children are done at 11:45.
And then for your first through third, they're done at 12:20. And
12:20.
for your fourth through fifth, they're done at 12:30.
Okay. And you're saying that if parents do run into a problem, that this is something they should address with the teacher and the site administrator to have some flexibility with, hopefully they'll log in every morning, right? But if there's becoming an issue for parents of having their children in front of a computer, that they will be able to address that with site administration as well as the teacher to come up with a plan so that the child's not missing school, not missing attendance, but also there's not a stressful environment at home that can really affect learning behavior in children.
Sure. And just so you know, during the asynchronous time, most likely they won't be on a computer. So
Okay.
it would be, they will be doing whiteboard activities. We're going to be giving math manipulatives. So they are doing things that they're not just going to be looking at the screen the whole time, but they're also, that's why the kits are so important.
Okay. No, I love the kit idea. That was actually going to be one of my questions tonight that you were able to answer. With the kits, and I'm hoping this is a yes, but I'm imagining that teachers will also be giving parents learning activities that they can do at home in off hours of school learning, also with some of the materials in the kits.
Yeah, so we're going to be adding mini materials that the students can do not only during asynchronous learning, but also they can use those materials throughout the weekends and elsewhere. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Similar to what we did in March when we closed down our schools for the safety of our students and our staff. We did some stuff online for them. We had access to the district website with a list of activities that parents and students could do at home. Are we going to be able to continue that for distance learning so they have another place to access some additional ideas to improve learning at home?
Yeah, we will have additional activities for them for sure. And
Okay.
just so that you know, like for instance, the paper for SIPs, this is the actual SIPs passages. So the students will not be reading off of the computer, but will be reading on a piece of paper. So there are multiple things that are going to be within this kit, like the journal, where a student will be asked to write in their journal. And so they won't necessarily be engaging on the computer, but they'll be using the kits. I think the difference between the kits and what we did in the spring is these things are meant to be non-disposable more, right? So, and this is an actual journal that the students can use day in and day out versus a consumable pack that gets taken back and forth. We're trying to minimize the amount of times that students have to come back for additional learning materials.
Okay. So my next question is, I know we talked about this prior, and there were still some questions out there, but adopting, I know some sites were supposed to be adopting the benchmark curriculum. What are we doing to work with sites if they feel that they want to push off adopting the benchmark program at this time? What kind of flexibility are we giving to sites and teachers to not add extra stress into certain aspects of
Yeah, well, so not much really, because what I would say is we need to have a comprehensive curriculum for our students. And currently, if you don't have the benchmark adoption, then what that means is that you do not have a sequence curriculum, or if you do, you have a curriculum that's very old that you're using. And so benchmark is is built, it's our newest adoption, and it is built to be digitized. So it's actually going to help the teachers to be able to not have to create so many materials. And the challenge that we have, which this has happened in the school district in the past, is we spend millions of dollars on an adoption and then we don't implement. And what I would say is, people say, well, this is different because we're in the pandemic. But what I would say is, it's easier actually to use a curriculum that is meant to be digitized and is already digital in its formats than to try to create a scope and sequence of instruction that really, if you're using old materials, will be a great challenge for you. So we're doing professional development in terms of benchmark and online learning. So how do you blend those together? I would say that the schools that there are a couple of schools that I know that have had some concerns on it. I would encourage them to have deeper conversations with both Lisa and Claudia, because what we found is it's actually decreased the pressure on teachers, not increase the pressure.
Okay. Is the district digitizing benchmark for the sites? Or is this something that
it already is? So it's already in digital form.
So it's already in digital form, so teachers can have a training on how to use benchmark digitally.
Yeah, and we are providing that to the 8 sites that are set to implement. Yep.
Is this voluntary or is this paid time?
This is SBC time, so this is paid time.
Okay, thank you for making that clear. Okay, and I'm glad to see that the district had made sure that it's already digitized, so we're kind of uniform across the board then, where we're not leaving it up to individual classrooms to digitize the material.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so as far as we've talked about special ed, and that was something new that we were trying to figure out. We didn't have all the information in place. So at some point in time, are we saying before January that we're hoping to have some of the special ed students whose parents want them to be there back into a classroom?
So I think if they will be the first students to come back, I will say that. Okay. I know that we have to ensure the safety of the students and also the safety of our staff in order to be able to do that. However, there are some students that logistically and just conceptually would be very hard for them to get to meet their educational needs all virtually. It would be take some of our life skills students. That would be extremely challenging for them to get everything that they need from any type of computer full time. So we know we have to do so carefully, but they would be our first set of students that we would bring back. And that is why I focused on that one schedule, because those would be the students. So it wouldn't be your resource students, and it wouldn't even be your mild to moderate students, most likely. It would be your most disabled students.
Okay. And so this goes with a special ed question. Can you be a little bit more clear on what is going to be done to help support our special ed students during distance learning?
So I think special education looks different, and that's why people think it's vague, but it's just so specific. So according to the disability that you have, it looks very different, right? So if you are a resource, if you are RSP student, then how it works is you're within the general education class, and your resource teacher, specialist teacher, is helping to support the general education teacher to supplement and provide intervention and supports to those children. And so that's the process that you have. So it's more of a supporting role. If you are let's say a life skills student, then you, for a lot of the time, you are with your teacher within the classroom. And then in that setting, most of the time there are both our instructional assistants and our behavior techs that are within that system. And so the benefit of doing the synchronous learning, and the reason why we had all the schedules for special education, is because this new process is going to allow our instructional assistants and our BTs, which are our behavior techs, to provide a much higher level of support, because they're going to be able to push into that synchronous time and be able to help and support the students. So our instructional assistants did a great job last year. For the most part, we provided them laptops, and they met and conferred with students and their parents. And so they will continue to do that. We had many staff members, many of the DIS services, so the designated services, that did teletherapy. That definitely was a request of parents. So many students receive their services through teletherapy. So I know there's a desire to increase that. But we also have to recognize that teletherapy is going to work with some goals, and it's not going to work with other goals. And so that is sometimes the challenge. I might be a parent, a really enthusiastic parent that has a child that is receiving teletherapy, and I might be talking to another parent who is not receiving teletherapy, and they kind of want to know, well, why am I not getting teletherapy? Well, it's based all on the goals and what is needed for the students. And so, but we are supporting much more teletherapy this year than we did in the past year, because it was very, it was supportive of students to be able to see their child. So what I would encourage parents who are special education parents is, first and foremost, contact the case manager, right? No, they still are going to do the matrix. So you'll remember the conversation last year where they're still doing the matrix. So a parent should be looking for that matrix. That's basically the goals and then what they're doing for each goal. And so I would encourage them to look at that matrix, to ask for it, to have conversations with the teachers on specifically what is happening. So all of our support staff that is always there to support continues to be there. And so I'd encourage them to do that. Again, special education, it's kind of like talking about English learners and thinking that they're all the same. Special education students have a very big range, right? And of needs. And so we'd be happy to talk about the child's specific needs with them. And so I'd encourage them to reach out to the case manager or one of the SELPA directors if they can't get an answer from the case manager.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And you answered part of my question. My next question I was going to ask is, what job duties will our IAs and BTs be doing? What's their jobs task going to be? Will they be performing live sessions on their own, or they'll be supporting with teachers? What is exactly going to be their role in distance learning?
Sure. So an instructional assistant and a behavior tech is always supposed to be at the direction of a certificated employee. So they should be receiving direction specifically from the teacher. So they should be working hand in hand. It again will not be the same, which I know is a challenge, but it won't be the same. So some teachers may say, what I need you to do is they may say, I'm not bilingual, you're bilingual. I need you to call these 7 parents and check in and make sure that they understand what's happening. If they have any questions, if they do it. Another teacher may be bilingual, so doesn't need that support. They may say to them, what I need you to do is I need you to push in and do intervention, because they're also SIPS trained if they're elementary, and do SIPS lessons with these 4 students, and please do so. Or they may say, you know what I need you to do is to be online in the same Google Classroom and supporting students. So they're a team, right? So they have to communicate. It's not, I know it's not the self-pay department that should be doing that communication. It's not even the principal that should be doing the communication. The teacher and the instructional assistants and the behavior techs, it's constantly changing. Every moment in their classroom changes, right? And so it can't be an outside person that is dictating what is happening, but it's looking at what are the students' goals, who is achieving those goals. When they're not achieving those goals, how can they work as a team to reinforce those goals being met? And so what we have said is, if their students are distance learning, they're distance learning with their students and supporting distance learning. If we wind up bringing back their students physically and they are the one-on-one for that student, they will come back and support that student during in-person learning. So they will do according to what we need to have happen with the students.
Okay, so for right now, they will be supporting their teachers that they've been assigned to and distance learning from their own homes, unless that student comes back for therapy or in-person instruction.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Back to, I forgot to ask you one question about preschool when we had the curriculum side up, but you can answer without having the slide. So they're going to log in the morning for their live session, and then they'll move to their small group, similar to what we talked about with the TK group. Is there a curriculum that everyone's going to be following for the preschool teaching?
So each group has a slightly different program. So they don't all have the same one. You're going to actually get information this Friday on what Migrant Seasonal Head Start is doing. And Casey, it's called Rosie Rose, or?
It's Ready Rosie.
Ready Rosie. I was close. So they just did a huge, kind of similar to what we're saying we're going to do with everyone. They just did a huge instructional packet giveaway to ensure that all the students are ready for it. And so each one uses a slightly different program because they are, different entities.
Okay, now that makes sense. But depending what entity they are, they will be following a curriculum that fits their site.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then that brings me back to what we talked about, safe learning spaces or hubs. We've been hearing them calling different names. We did essential care worker in March. Is that something that we are looking at doing still? To be clear on this, are we still trying to work with our partners to provide care for children of essential workers?
Yes, with a focus on classified, because certificated has the ability to work from home. And so because there is going to be limited space, it is specifically targeted for classified workers who have to work on site.
Okay. And what have we explored for parents that are in the predicament of, we have single parents who have to choose to either go to work and put food on their table or sit at home with a child for distance learning? Have we looked at exploring options to get these children into one of our hubs for learning, or one of our spaces for essential care?
Yeah, so that those are the YMCA, the El Sistema that we were referring to. So the Parks and Rec. So those are all the groups that we're working with in order to be able to provide support for our working parents.
Okay, so how will we know that the parents need support? Is there going to be an application process that parents are going to go through? Are they going to have to submit letters from their employers that they're a dual working family or a single parent working family? How are these children going to be selected to be able to go to these hubs?
Yeah. So they're two different things. So the safe spaces is dictated by the interactive dialogue process. So that's ours and that's separate. The safe spaces is separate from the child care community partner process. And so it will be a tiered approach. So first it's going to be essential workers, right? So families of essential workers, those children will be first. And then it will be groups that we must continue to support. So foster youth, homeless and foster youth will be one of them. And it will depend on how many spots we can have. But for the most part, it will be directed by those community groups. So we're really working with them in order to let them know this is the need. So we have a very supportive community, and so many are asking us, what can we do to help? So we're saying, this is what you can do to help. So like the YMCA, we're not going to be directing that process. They'll manage that process themselves. What we're doing is we're informing parents of these are all the different areas that you can go to for support.
Okay. Have we sent out or have we heard from any parents that say they absolutely need some kind of care or support for distance learning in order to make it work for them because they're a dual working family that doesn't have the option to have a parent work from home, they have no relatives here, or they're a single parent? Have we sent anything out to our families to inquire what the actual need for these types of services are?
I mean, we preliminarily did that. We did that with the survey. So we sent both surveys out and we asked that question. It was interestingly not at the top of their priority list when we asked them what were the things that they prioritized. If you remember that there was a listing, and childcare was definitely not at the top. We were actually surprised that it wasn't. I think once we approve this plan and get it sent out, we definitely can continue to work. I will say that it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because most people are in agreement that we should maintain distance learning. So then childcare is against their sensibilities.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a challenge, and that's another one of those mandates where the two don't seem to go, right? We have a mandate to provide childcare support, and then we also have a mandate to provide distance learning and try to physically distance. And so I'll say some parents, even when I've talked to them about the safe spaces, haven't been very convinced because they don't necessarily want to send their children to those spaces. Even though, we do the 12-to-1 and our community partners would do the 12-to-1, but yeah, so I'm sure that there are, it's a challenging situation for many.
Right. I know San Francisco Unified is working with Parks and Recreation and the city, and I know that's something that you've looked into to open up spaces that are available through the city sites and through our Parks and Rec sites. But if it was necessary, would we be able to open up a site in one of our schools if we maintained the same rules of safety to accommodate overflow or accommodate additional need for care?
We possibly could. We just have to look at we'd have to look at all the regulations and requirements around that.
Okay. I think that is something that we need to look at. I just think we need to be proactive on this so that we're not left scrambling. Say September comes and all of a sudden there's more people going back to work, or you know, things change for families. I think it's something that we need to start now and inquire about regulations, inquire what we need to do if we have to accommodate some type of overflow, or really take care of our students that feel like they're being left behind, or we just don't know what's going to happen, right? So it might be, I think it would just be to our advantage if we were a little bit proactive on this matter and said, look, what does it take if we need to open up a site? What precautions do we have to do? What plans do we need in place? What waivers do we need? So to have all of our ducks in a row, so to speak, to make that process smoother if it comes to the determination of the board and the district that this is something we need. It would be nice to have a lot of the planning underway for that. And I think back to the virtual academy. I know you said right now there's not a bilingual format in this virtual academy, which does concern me. But is that something that you said, if the virtual academy continues, is it a platform that we can bring on?
So yeah, so we are able to certify and create additional courses. So we are able to do our own and then place it. It has to get certified, especially if it's at the upper level, meaning 6th grade and beyond. Then we need to make sure that it complies with you know, requirements for graduation and all that, but we definitely can. It just would not occur this year, and we are assuming that the virtual academy will continue on, right? We're not assuming that it will be a one.
I'm hoping that it continues on, because I'd hate to spend $2 million on it and see it not go through the 2021 school year. So I'm hoping that this can become a platform that the district can use, because I know that there's definitely other programs that need money. So I'm hoping that this will continue on. That was one of my fears with it being presented, that parents weren't going to continue with it once school was back in session. But as of right now, we don't know when school is going to be back in session. So hopefully that is something that will be a good decision by the district. Last question. So we say we go back in January of 2021 and we're gonna go back. Have we looked into air purifiers for the classrooms?
So we've done a combination of things. So we had an outside company that came in and did an evaluation of all of our HVACs, and then looked at all of our settings for the air quality. So we actually have machines that are able to do that. We have began to look at, although the research isn't great on it, to be truthful, but we have began to look at air purifiers for locations that are not meant really for staff to be in. And so we either will need to move them, or we will look for at the air purifiers. But we are looking at the research of that, because it is not that great. So it's really not a cost, but we don't want to give people a false sense of security of something if we can't ensure that it works. But we're not against the idea. First and foremost, which is what we're doing, we are almost finished with having a full evaluation of our HVAC, and then we're going to do all of the repairs. And that's what those facility planning did. And then after that, then we'll identify if there's rooms that actually need those filters.
Okay, so what I'd like to do with that is move that to possibly a future agenda if we're opening, and have just the information ready about how many rooms would need it, costs to the district. Once again, being proactive so that we're not scrambling for numbers, sources, and air purifiers at a point in time when school's going back in session in 3 weeks, let's say. So just having stuff ready for that. My last question to you is, with what's going on in Santa Cruz County right now, we've reached over 1,000 cases. And I fully support us not going back to school during this first semester because I think it would be too much of a roller coaster for children, parents, and teachers. So I am glad that, you know, we have made that clear with distance learning that this is for the semester. I think we need to have as much of our staff working from home as possible. That's to minimize you guys from potential risk in the district office, as well as our workers that are working in the district office. Anyone who's working at school sites, we should be minimizing in-person meetings. Any meetings that we can do should be on Zoom. We shouldn't be having any meetings over 12 in person if we can avoid it. I think it's really important to stop the spread, that we limit to these types of gatherings. You know, we're not letting school be in session because we have a worry about the health and safety of our staff and our children. So I think it's really important that we look at alternatives for all of our workers to be working as much from possible as home, whether it's staggered schedules, whether it's split days, but really making an effort to minimize in-person meetings, as well as making an effort to have some staggered scheduling and flexibility from working from home when feasible. And with that, I told you I had a lot. That is my last comment, and I will let my other fellow trustees speak their concerns and ask their questions. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez.
I have a couple of questions, President Dodge, if I may.
Yeah, Maria, Trustee Orozco, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Trustee Shocker, I think I covered a significant number that I had, but I do have 3 left. The first one is, which classified employees will be expected to return to work sites?
So you will have your custodian that will still be there. Your custodians will still be present. You will have your office manager or administrative assistant, because we need to begin to be able to serve our parents' needs once again. We will have our library media techs that will be present. They will be by themselves within the libraries, but if you go currently into the libraries, you will see all the books that were returned by students that have not been checked back into the system. So it's much easier to give and then to check back in and receive. And many of those will get back into students' hands eventually. You will have the health assistant will be there in order to be able to do the emergency cards, to do the work on the files that is necessary in order to ensure that we are prepped for when we return. So currently the challenge that we have is we need to be able to make sure that we can have staff working so that they can, in fact, make sure that we're ready when we do need to open up. I mean, I will say that we have curtailed and narrowed for many months the hours in which people have been working. And we have not been able to fully function nor fully support our community as I feel that we need to, whether it's with phone calls or others. We are in the long haul with this. You will hear from the expectations that you heard from the teachers. The teachers are being expected to do much more than they did during the spring. And we need to, in turn, make sure that we are being able to clean our schools and get our schools ready and working. Food services will still have to continue to provide food for families. And so the challenge is we are a people business. And so it's really hard to be people's business and do it from home. And so when we're able to, for instance, the instructional assistants and the IAs and the BTs, then we are having them work from home as well. But if we cannot do our work from home, then we don't do so. We do it. But what we are guaranteeing, and we're working through the MOU as we speak with CSEA, is we have guaranteed that they'll have the 6 feet distancing, they'll have the PPE, they can do staggered entry. But we have done months of highly minimized work schedule, and we frankly have not been able to get our schools ready. So if we were to open on August 17th, we would not have been ready. We would not have been ready, and it's unfortunately partly because our schools were in need of significant care, but it doesn't mean that they don't still need that care. And whether we wind up coming back in January, we wind up coming back in March or the next school year, we still need to ensure that we're taking care of our families, our students, and the other. And we feel that we will have the PPE, the personal protective equipment, to ensure that people can do so safely. And so I'll leave it at that. I'm sure that's not an exhaustive list. I was trying to think of the main categories. We actually, within the MOU that we're doing with CSEA, we're talking about alternative jobs that people can do. For example, our bus drivers, if they're not driving our buses, what are some jobs that they might be doing? Campus supervisors, what are some jobs that they might be doing? All because they know that they make a great impact on our system and we need them.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad we're having that conversation because, I think if we need to limit whoever's at our campuses, right, to the bare minimum, like as far as who actually needs to be there, like our custodians, our maintenance crews, and so forth. It's just concerning with the rise of COVID cases. I think safety it's always a priority. So I'm glad that we're having that conversation with CSEA and determining, alternatives to some of the work environments or things that they can do from home. So we can limit that as much as possible, I think would be good. As far as, expectations and work effectiveness, how are we tracking that?
In terms of what? In terms of classified or certificated, or in terms of what?
Yeah, classify employees. Because we've heard a lot as far as, there's, we can work from home. We've been supporting teachers and staff from home, and we've doing that effectively. So has that been the case?
No, I think in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. We had this exact conversation with CSEA today. It wasn't a positive conversation, but when we thought that it was just a 3-month stint, when we thought that it was just for the short period of time, we made a lot of concessions. We allowed, and I think our parents felt it, our students felt it, we allowed people to focus on their individual families, on their individual selves' health. Many went out of their way and did excellent work. But for example, we had over 150 instructional assistants that never went on once to a Google Classroom, or what we were able to contact 150. So that tells me that we were trying to be kind and caring to our staff when we were in the middle of the pandemic. It was brand new. We thought that was best, and I'm sure it was best. The challenge is that now we know this is at least another 6 months. Right? we know that now we can't, just as with teachers, we can't expect what we expected before. And so I think a lot of conversations were not had that probably should have been had, to be truthful, right? We probably should have let more people know, yeah, we're actually not doing what we should be doing, right? And so I think that that's getting us a bit right now, because I think because we're trying not to be critical, it made people believe that we were doing exactly what we needed to for our students and parents and community. And in some cases, we absolutely were, right? Our food service workers did over $1 million during the 3 months, 500,000 during the summer. Our technology staff did a tremendous job. We started really our grounds now. I was just at PVHS just a few days ago, and they're getting all the brush out, and they're putting brand new trees on the hillside, right? So we're really trying to make strides, and so I don't want to negate all the work that they did, but I think there was significant groups that we did not hold as accountable as we could, because we were trying to be considerate of the situation we were in. Many people were fearful, focused on their family, and it's probably how it should be, but I'm not sure it can be that way for another 6 months.
Okay, but that's a conversation we're having with the CSEA and their input and feedback on how to better address that situation, correct?
Yep, we've been having it.
Good. I'm just,
we keep hoping that the MOU will finish up. We keep hoping about that.
Yeah, I just think it's good, to just be inclusive and work together, especially now, to sort of get to that balance of work expectations, but also take into account that they also have families at home, right, that need them and so forth. So it's, I know it's complicated. I don't think it's an easy process. I imagine so. But I'm glad that we're at least having that conversation thoroughly with them and working together to find a collaborative solution to.
And I just wanted to mention, I misspoke. It was 57, not 150. Sorry, 57. Okay. So we only have 200 and some, so 57.
Okay.
But still, that's a pretty pretty good chunk.
As far as the childcare piece for classified employees, so what's the capacity at those childcare centers? And is it enough to house the children of our employees that will have to go back?
With the survey that we did, we would say that we will be able to support the classified, the children that we need for the classified.
Okay. And then as far as, we talked a lot about professional development for teachers and staff, but I don't think we've talked enough about the parent component. So I'm wondering if, similar to what we do with teachers, if there could be some parent online training that can be provided, not just, oh, here's a video, but actually a face-to-face, like maybe a Zoom training, just like when people log in to have to your conversation, conversations with the superintendent, to just have someone present and walk them through the different programs that their child may need to access and how to access those programs. What are those programs for? So they get familiarized with what the expectations would be and how to log in, so that we can help them start the year off right. So I'm not sure if we can get those scheduled.
Yeah, so we have not only learning modules that we're looking to create, but Casey has also already been working with principals on some virtual opportunity for our parents. We do have a proposal to provide some voluntary in person, but having the 6 feet distance and having it outside and having some parents. However, currently that is not looking very good. So most likely it will have to be just the virtual only. We were trying to do some, at least some limited in person for parents at schools where it's always hard to teach technology through technology, right? So we're coming up with ideas of how to do when they do get the computer, to have like a QR code that they just have to scan that kind of helps them to identify like how do you log on to a Chromebook? How do you do those things? And I see Casey popped in, so you might want to talk. So go ahead, Casey.
No, I just wanted to speak to that. Yes, we were putting together a proposal to be able to give that support to our parents in small clusters, but the health department was not prepared to approve it just yet. But we are, like Dr. Rodriguez was saying, is putting together a QR code and having parents actually be able to, right when they pick up their Chromebook, they'll be able to scan it with their phone and actually be able to have a self-paced introduction to the Chromebook. Like, good evening, welcome to your Chromebook. This is how we do it, how you log in, how they use the student's ID number, and then the parents can actually watch it again and again. And so we would have several of our prioritized ones, one for Google Classroom, for Seesaw, for Lexia, and then of course we would want to be able to provide multiple opportunities virtually, right? From the, whether it's through the district or based on school sites. We'd also want to make sure that we are having virtual meetings with our parents, right? Like an introduction, and then looking with also being able to provide a virtual welcome by the principal also to the students through streaming also, because we won't be able to do it live.
So I'm assuming, I'm assuming all of that will be in English and Spanish, possibly Mixteco.
All 3 languages. So we're working with our parent engagement team and our translation services to make sure that our parents have access in their primary language so they are able to have access.
I guess, the population that I'm most concerned about is, our farm working families that may not be as, and they could be, maybe I'm making a huge assumption I'm here, but that maybe are not as familiar with QR codes. Like, what is that? I think there's just an information divide, and I just want to make sure that we don't forget about them, and that there's somewhat more hand-holding with that population specifically to ensure that they're able to access all the programs at the right times and so forth. So hopefully we, as you plan the trainings moving forward, you keep that in mind. Yes. I know you probably have.
So that is our whole frame. Instead of waiting after the fact, our frame is through access and equity for, of course, our most vulnerable and the families that have the least access. And so we definitely, that's why we were putting together, even though it's a high risk, we were trying to find every way to be able to, like you said, hold their hand, right? Give them that hug and walk them through it. So we start them off with feeling successful and not intimidated. And so I think even as we're thinking about the distribution of Chromebooks, even though we can't take them into a training session, we can be there right then and there to show them how a QR code, works, because most smartphones are everywhere, right? And then when we are when we do have that approval process for something live, then we already have the presentations all ready to go, right? We have the protocols ready, and we can move them along the minute we can do something live too, because of course, you know, parents will have a problem there. We want to have 100% participation, but it's hard to cover the whole entire gamut without doing something live.
That's correct. And then thank you for that. So going back to attendance. So given the fact that we are going to be required to take attendance, so is it going to work the same way as far as ADA funding? So for a student who is a non-participating student, are we still going to be receiving funding for that student or not?
It's not contingent on funding, it's just contingent. So the attendance piece is all based on requiring participation of students and tracking participation of students. It's not linked to our funding.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're held harmless with our funding. This is mostly about, and we actually did a good job. I know we always hear the challenges, but we actually did a really stellar job on getting kids to engage even the way and the amount that we did. So statewide, it was a major concern of there were some students who never, in the state, there was large amounts of students that never had any instruction, and school districts really couldn't quantify it, right? They couldn't really say how much, how often they went on it. It's kind of like with us, we could say what percentage of students logged into Google Classroom, but it wasn't the same as being participatory in the class, right? Because it was just, we knew they logged in, but we didn't know which class they logged into, especially if they were secondary. And so it's not linked to ADA, but it's just a requirement for us to monitor their participation.
Got it. And then I know that, and this could be a resource that we can utilize as far as distributing information to parents. We do have Ruby Vasquez and a couple of other amazing individuals that work for our district that form part of the Wattsville Campesino Appreciation Caravan. So maybe utilizing them as a resource to distribute that information, I think would be great, given that they actually have, you know, some interaction with parents, so that may help. And lastly, just a quick comment, Casey and everyone, thank you so much for including our preschool at Duncan Holbert as part of the plan that we will be approving tonight. I know it's a big deal for them, and I know that I received more than a couple of emails you know, letting me know how hard staff has worked to ensure that they feel included, and they do. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Trustee Orozco. And any other trustees, questions, comments, or concerns?
I had one follow-up. My questions about special ed and the Virtual Academy were already asked and answered. Yeah. So, but with the executive orders, when are we, do we have any idea when those will be finalized? Or is that just kind of?
We were hoping, I was hoping I'd have it by tonight, but I don't. He was planning on, what we heard was that he was planning on doing some executive orders last Friday, and he didn't do them. So he seems to do them on Friday. So I'm hoping we may get it by Friday.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
He knows that schools are starting, so I think it will be fairly quick.
Right. Right. All right. That was the last of my list. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Holm. Trustee DeSerpa, are you there?
Yeah, I do have just a quick question.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job covering all the other questions we had, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but for teachers who want to teach from their classroom because they find it helpful to be in that milieu, I can they do that, or did I miss something?
7 to 4:30 p.m. only, though. So we are restricting outside of that time, no, because we want to be able to disinfect and keep the schools clean. So they can come and be on campus inside the room. from 7 to 4:30 p.m.
Okay. You know, I'm in the hospital about 10 to 12 hours every day working with, you know, like regular groups of people sitting at the bedside of patients. So I just think, you know, there's a lot of space in a classroom. There's a lot of space on the campuses of Valencia. We built that outdoor classroom. Your entire staff could sit there and have a meeting and not be that close. If they're all wearing masks, et cetera. So I really don't think, I mean, I think we're being very, very cautious, erring on the side of caution, but I do think that people could work from their classrooms if they want to or need to.
I mean, when they're by themselves, I think their risk is extremely low. And we have had a lot of teachers ask to be able to do that. We are encouraging no in-person meetings of all staff because we don't need to quarantine, 100 staff members if something was to happen. So I would just, we are encouraging virtual staff meetings just to be on the safe side.
And this is just, I'm not recommending this. I don't even think it's a good idea. It's just a question. If there are large groups of people that cannot do the regular job that they're supposed to be doing, does it make any sense to lay them off? They could get unemployment and we could have budgetary savings until we were able to rehire. Are any other districts looking at that?
I know the smaller districts are, we are not. We are working through the MOU. We're working on what could be the other activities that they could do, and it will specifically be in the MOU. We are not looking at that at this time. I know some of the smaller school districts in the county that have smaller budgets and smaller staffs, they are considering doing that. There are 3 sets of staff that you cannot lay off due to the SB. Well, I'm not sure if it's SB 98, but so don't know. I'm not sure which one it is, but there's the 3 categories. So it's transportation, food services, and custodial. You actually can't. Not that we would want to, but they cannot be laid off. For us, we would prefer to maintain the employees and then have them do other duties that, as I was mentioning before, we have a lot to do to get ourselves prepared.
Okay, so I agree with that. I don't want to, I think preserving our staff on their benefits and with their salaries is good, but also people need to be productive and work for that compensation. And we have a lot of needs in our district, and I would love to see our campuses really improved during the next 6 months if possible.
I think we all would. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Trustee DeSerpa. Trustee Acosta, did you want to add anything to this conversation?
Thank you, President Trustee Dodge Jr. Yes, I'd like to. Dr. Rodriguez, I just wanted to ask you a quick question about our internet partnerships for students and teachers. What are we doing to look into that to help support that? And coming with the fall of 2020, at least through the first semester.
Sure. So both teachers and parents can, through Cruise.io, have the reduced rate of the $9.99 a month, $9.99 a month. So they can do that. One of the challenges is just their capacity of how many they can do at one time. So they have continued to do their full capacity this summer, and so we have many more parents and staff that do have that that has happened. I think we are relying because we cannot pay for internet, but we can. And it might sound interesting that we can't pay for home internet, but we can pay for the service of the hotspots. We do have the hotspots. The hotspots are, again, dependent on your self-service, right? So the better your self-service, if you have good self-service, the hotspot could work really well for you. It's never going to work as good as your home internet. But if you have poor cell service, then it will be spotty. And so that's why you do have varying levels. We have not had good traction with Spectrum. Jimmy Pineda and his office, we've been in contact twice on it just recently. They just reached out yet again. It's been several weeks now, but feels like it was just recently, but probably 2-3 weeks ago, trying to really support the infrastructure, because that's what we're finding is especially some areas of Aptos are very remote, and the infrastructure to get into those homes is extremely expensive, and so our parents can't afford it. And we're not allowed to use district funding. In one case, it was $15,000 to lay the line, and the other it was $2,000. But either way, we're not allowed to use our funding for that type of infrastructure.
Okay, and this might be hard for some here in this meeting, sitting here in the live session of it, to understand. But $10 a month on a reduced rate could even be too much for some of our families in this community. So how about our school buses? We have school buses equipped with Wi-Fi, correct?
We have some, not all of them, but yes.
Right, not all of them, but some of them, correct?
Yes.
And you were talking about the repurposing potential of school bus drivers, and I think you were talking about them being, campus supervisors or something of that sort, I believe it was, which I'm not sure really what that means given this time and climate.
No.
What is that? Oh, let's start there. What could you elaborate to me what that means about them being campus supervisors?
No, I wasn't saying they were being campus supervisors. I was meaning I was identifying the different jobs that we are looking for alternative jobs to provide. So bus drivers and campus supervisors are two of the job descriptions that we're looking at what alternate duties they would be assigned.
Oh, okay. So, okay, my misinterpretation of that. Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. So what about the possibility of the utilization of our school bus drivers, of course, on a seniority basis, down the trail by voluntary basis, of them potentially having the Wi-Fi equipped buses driving into communities, like particularly some of the areas in Las Lomas, Pajaro, certain areas of Westville where they don't have the Wi-Fi capability, that those buses could be parked in those areas, and that could be a utilization. And as well as also looking at our school bus drivers being that our transportation department with our school bus drivers being looked at for utilization for food delivery, student packets, pickup, supplies, that source. What about that potential possibility? Has that been discussed in the conversations with classified and in the negotiations?
Yeah, so we have identified, so with the bus driving, so we have had, and Dan Weiser, if he's listening right now, he's like, yes, she's spoken to me about this multiple times. Mm-hmm. So the hotspot on the bus is exactly that. It's a hotspot. So the challenge that we have is it doesn't transmit that far. So we've had the conversation about what do we do? And can we park the buses? Can we move the buses? We thought about that, especially around Radcliffe, where, they have significant apartment buildings. And what we found is we tested it and the signal didn't go in enough. So what that was going to mean is that we were going to be encouraging students to come out into the street. And so we decided that possibly wasn't the best, where we actually have much better Wi-Fi And we haven't broadcasted this quite a lot because we were trying to not support the congregation of people, is the parking lots of our schools. So the parking lots of our schools, they have the Wi-Fi that actually is broadcast and is purposely it was strong enough to broadcast into the parking lots. Some school districts were emphasizing that during the spring. We did not, because I felt it was counter to the shelter in place, stay at home, don't go out. But those are actually our best locations. I guess the challenge would be, since it's only about, it's less than 100 yards, is where can we put it to where it would be safe for children to congregate around. So like Coachella did it, and they actually got a lot of positive press. This was years ago now. They did that. It caused, which is, it can be seen as a challenge, it caused kids to come out of their homes, right? And sit around. And just because before we weren't worrying about transmitting a disease, then we didn't worry about it. I mean, we can have a conversation again about it and say, how can we manage that? I just worry a little bit about having, kids know, oh, I can come sit around here, and then there's no one supervising them, and then there's something that happens. But we can definitely continue with the conversation for sure.
Yeah, I do recall, I read reading on what Coachella did with that as well myself. And that was a great thing for them. But so is there anything that we can do to expand the Wi-Fi capability of our buses if they were to be parked in communities? Is that a possibility?
Well,
to expand the reach?
I know that the answer originally was no, but what I'll do is we literally just had this conversation again. I think it was Trustee Shocker that talked to me about it. It might have been someone else. So I'm sorry if I'm not giving the right credit to someone. Was talking to me about it a couple of weeks ago, and maybe month ago. And so we did look into it again. I was told at the time, that's where we were talking about what the actual Wi-Fi on the bus was, and how it really wasn't much different than a large hotspot that we give to a child. I mean, it's capable of doing more devices, but it's not more powerful with it
on its bandwidth expansion, right?
But we'll make sure that there's nothing new out there. I mean, we are working like with Cruise.io to do something at Buena Vista, which is more of a hub, right? Which would have better radiating power, but that's because it's not actually a hotspot, but rather it's a receptor of some sort, and I won't remember.
So it sounds like it's probably on your radar to look into, to see what we could do to possibly expand that. I mean,
yeah, I'll look into it for sure.
I think that we would have several of our classified and personnel bus drivers that would be more than happy to, go through, roll down on a seniority basis and volunteer to be able to, whether it to be doing that, driving buses to areas and parking them, if we could expand the Wi-Fi capability, plus the food delivery, if that is a possibility, to look at that. I definitely, not just because it's a state mandation that we can't lay off transportation, food services, or custodial. I definitely, cannot support or agree with even a remote conversation about that. And what could we do to repurpose the monies from laying off a bunch of people and putting that money elsewhere? That's really putting the cart before the horse, and we're not there. And I do not think that's a conversation we should even be entertaining at this point. As well as we know from direction from the state, we shouldn't even be having that conversation. A couple of other points that were made. I really agree with a comment that Trustee Shocker made earlier as well. I think with regards to our employees, particularly at our large departments like the district office, maintenance, operations, and facilities, we really need to, I think, look at staggering these employees and their work times. I think we're going to be going into, not just me, I mean, based on what we're hearing coming out, what we're going into in this next phase with all of this, we need to do everything we can for those employees that are continuing to come to work to, and it's mostly classified employees. We need to do everything we can to ensure their health, their safety, their well-being, and what that extends into their families and the greater community. So however we can stagger them, reduce work hours, minimize staff that's working on site, I think that is essential that we look at doing that. Another comment that Trustee Shocker made that I definitely would also agree with was that we need to be proactive on the changing needs for our families in this community and what we could do to support that. You know, we just have a lot of families that don't have the ability to figure this out on their own, to be doing it at home alone. And, you know, what more can we continue to do to help support them? And also the changing landscape and environment of this situation that we're in. So being open to that and having that be a part of the conversation at all levels, especially with your contingency team. So I think that is probably about it. Thank you for your presentation. And I appreciate, again, I'm gonna say I appreciate all the work that's been put into this by everyone and all those employees that have sacrificed their own personal time to be a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Acosta. Trustee Acosta brought up a really great point about the buses with Wi-Fi. I know Monterey County, I think they've had it since April already, have already had buses going to sites. The Monterey County Office of Education has a page that shows the different school districts within their districts that have buses that go to spots. For example, Greenfield Unified School District has a bus that goes to 2 sites, Mondays through Fridays, 9 through 10:30. Another site, 10:45 to 12. Soledad Unified School District, you know, the same thing. They have a bus at a YMCA, Mondays through Thursdays, 3:15 to 5. King City Unified School District has a bus with Wi-Fi that is at the Salinas Valley Fairgrounds, Mondays through Thursdays, 3:30 to 5. So I would like to agree with Trustee Acosta that this should be brought back as another agenda item to see what we could do, you know, whether it's at a Y or at the fairgrounds, Pajaro Middle School, Radcliffe, especially Las Lomas. We got to do more for them out there. I'd also like to say thank you very much, Trustee Shocker, for all your questions. I just have I have a couple quick questions. Dr. Rodriguez, a couple quick questions. What are the PE teachers doing at this moment?
They will be doing virtual PE with their students like they did this past year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they do Zoom lessons, soccer, dribbling. I mean, they do a lot of good work.
Okay, and the 57 employees you talked about who haven't shown up to work, how does that go unnoticed? Like, did you ever reach out to them? Was there warnings? Was there any type of, hey, we haven't heard from you, what's going on?
Yeah, so that's what I was referring to is there was communication with those employees, but there probably wasn't as much accountability as we should have because we allowed that to happen. Yeah.
Another question, is it is it possible to let older workers within our district 60 and over to be able to work from home?
So there's an interactive process
Yeah.
that they can go through with HR. So each and every employee, it's part of our board bylaws as well. We have an interactive process. It's also part of our contract. So I will say that HR has been very busy, and I think with the distance learning, it will be better. But yes, they do have to go through an interactive process with HR. There's a process.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm not sure if I might have missed this within Trustee Shocker's questions. We talk about TK through second graders using Chromebooks. Have those students gotten Chromebooks?
So currently, all students who were for second grade through 12th grade last year have,
Yes.
well, second through 11th grade last year have Chromebooks. Our TKK and most and first grade students, they will receive them during that distribution period.
Yes.
So we are going to be giving it to them. They do not have them all. Some
Okay.
schools did send them out, but most did not. But they will
Yeah.
have them for this next year.
Yeah, because I helped pass out some of the Chromebooks, and I remember when we just started, I believe it was just third or fourth graders and up.
Yeah, it was
at
third.
EHA.
Yeah, it was third through 12th, and then we went down to second grade for all. Some schools went down to first grade.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Most did. I'd say there was a lot that did not go down to
Okay.
first grade.
Yeah, so I know that in my area right here by E Hall, Mini White, and Radcliffe, I'm pretty sure a lot of first graders didn't get them, and I know we have a big kindergarten year here also at Mini White, so I just want to be able to tell people that have kids that age to show up.
Yep.
To make sure they get them.
Yep. Show up,
and-
get your back to school kits and your computer.
Yes, I know the backpacks that you guys gave away with Teacher Ortiz or Mrs. Ortiz. There was thousands of kids who showed up to get those backpacks and the science projects, and there's a lot of need, and I just want to make sure everyone knows the dates. And so I don't want a generation of children between TK, kindergarten, and first to kind of be a lost generation, because I think that hurts us all in the long run. So thank you very much. So those are my questions. And now, if could someone make a motion?
President Dodge, I have a clarification question for
Okay.
Dr. Rodriguez.
Yes, Trustee Shocker.
And this brought up, you brought up a point, Trustee Orozco brought up a point about the cue cards or the scan cards that go out to parents, right, with their Chromebooks. Is there a way that we can hand out a written piece of paper at the same time that explains what that card is, how to use it, if necessary? It doesn't have to go out with every distribution, but have that available so that parents actually know what that is, and also maybe have the tech department's phone number written on there, so that parents have an actual piece of paper to help them navigate this digital challenge that some of them will be facing.
Yeah, so they're going to get a card that's longer, that's going to have the student name, their student ID number, as well as the QR code, and then information on how to use it.
Okay.
And again, it will be in English and Spanish. Mixteco Bajo is only a spoken language, so it
Right.
won't be, it can't be written, but it will be in English and Spanish.
Okay, so the QR card will actually have a little bit of written instruction on that for them. Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify that. And then one other point that was brought up, we have missing out on orientation, right? And you mentioned that the sites were working on orientation. Mm-hmm. Can we make sure that all the sites are doing an orientation for their families, and maybe for our incoming TK and kindergartners, if we could actually include some pictures of what their school site looks like for their orientation, to kind of give them that sense of belonging to a school, since some of them won't be walking into a classroom.
Yeah, we're gonna do virtual tours like when you're going and when you're trying to buy a house.
Okay. Yeah, I think I
awesome.
think that would be a good idea and make people feel a little bit better about that. So with those questions answered, I would like to make a motion to approve our school reopening plan with one amendment. I would like to have the plan come before the board if we move to medium level so that we can address any concerns that the district has, parents have, we as a board might have. So if we decide that we're opening in January to have a meeting where we discuss some of the things that might be needed to get us there. And I also had made clear about being proactive with our finding out about our learning spaces for working parents. So if we can just include that, that would be wonderful. And I'd be happy to support distance learning plan.
I'll second that motion.
Second that.
Okay, I have a first and a second. I will now call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right. Motion passes. Our next special board meeting is scheduled for August 12th, 2020, and I would like to adjourn this meeting at 8:39.
President Trustee Dodge Jr., can you
Yes.
clarify the special meeting of August 12th and what the agenda topic is for that?
I believe it's a regular meeting, isn't it?
No,
Oh.
it's a
Special
special. It was supposed to be just my evaluation where I do the presentation. So it was supposed to just be a closed session. However, we don't have to. We are choosing to do the 45-day revise in an effort to be transparent as a presentation. Legally, we just have to post it on the website. We are doing it as a presentation. So we will have one open session item, which will be the 45-day revise. And then we will go into closed session where I will do my annual presentation to the board. And then when it doesn't happen that night, when at the next board meeting, then I usually, I don't have to, but I do it because transparency's sake, I provide that PowerPoint to the community so that everyone sees it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So we would start with a special board meeting with regards to the 45-day budget in an open public session, and then we'll be going to closed session after that.
That's correct. Mhm.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will see everybody August 12th at 6 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hey, good night.
Good night.